Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to follow the Honourable Member for Coventry North East. I'm sorry to hear that she was so disappointed by the budget. One thing I did notice is that since 2010, I believe that unemployment in her constituency has halved, in fact done better than that. So maybe that is something that she could welcome next time she speaks on the economy. Listening to the Chancellor, I was reminded by how far we have come since 2010. Back then, when borrowing was over £150 billion per annum, the deficit was 10% of GDP, unemployment was over 8%, and 9 out of 10 households were receiving benefits. We had an unsustainable benefit system, disincentivising work, trapping people on benefits, an unsustainable public sector, and overall unsustainable finances, with the government failing to collect enough tax to pay for our public services, even in the good times. So I will take no lessons from the party opposite on taxing the wealthy. By contrast, where we are now, debt falling as a share of GDP, the deficit down 4/5, steady growth exceeding forecasts, the lowest unemployment in my lifetime, real terms wage growth, lower tax rates but higher tax revenues, which after all is what matters. So we have an economy that can fund investment in infrastructure and investment in public services, and do so without beating up businesses or loading debt onto future generations. Throughout the Chancellor's speech, I noticed the faces on the front row opposite looking very glum. I fear that there was too much good news. By contrast, I want to mention 4 areas in the Chancellor's speech that I particularly welcomed. Firstly, the support for businesses, to which we look for economic growth, for jobs, for higher wages and, yes, for taxes. I welcome the Chancellor's support for entrepreneurs, and I should declare an interest because I'm married to one. I welcome the support for start-ups, including entrepreneurial benefits claimants, which reminded me just in my last surgery of a lady who came in who was trying to start up a business in order to be no longer reliant on benefits, and she specifically asked for more mentoring, so I welcome that in the budget, and particularly support for high street shops. I suspect that all of us in this chamber shop online. I certainly do, but I also cherish the towns and village centres in my constituency, and we know that high street shops are struggling, so I welcome the business rate relief that they will receive and the Chancellor's steps to level the playing field between bricks and mortar and global online giants. As he said, there is further to go, and we would like a global answer on this, but it is a step in the right direction. Secondly, I welcome the investment in infrastructure at the very local level. There's potholes, about which I receive many letters and emails each week, but also nearly £30 billion for major roads. As a Kent MP, this is particularly significant because we're on the corridor between most of the country and the Channel. And so I will continue to lobby the Chancellor for a share of that money to come to my area, from resurfacing the M20, improving the M2, and specifically redeveloping Brenley Corner, a well-known local hotspot and important junction between the A2 and the M2. And overall, we need greater resilience of our road transport network, which will support economic growth and, quite simply, make it easier for my constituents to get around. Thirdly, I want to mention public services and the very welcome investment in the National Health Service, £20.5 billion, which was announced earlier this year, and specifically £2 billion of that going towards mental health. The government has shown great commitment to mental health, already putting more money into mental health, but the Chancellors recognise that there is still further to go. And for the gap to close between access to mental health care compared to physical health care, the funding for mental health needs to go up faster. So this is another step in the right direction, a step on the path to parity between mental health and physical health care. And finally, I'd like to talk about the support for people on the lowest incomes. A couple of months ago, I asked the Chancellor in person to think about women when he made the budget. Very practically, the incomes for women, because though great progress I'm glad to see a smile on the front bench opposite, perhaps for the first time. Great progress is being made on the gender pay gap. But still we know that women tend to be on lower incomes than men. So, for instance, the rise in the national living wage to over £8 next year will help more women than men, and I recognise that as another step towards bringing women onto higher incomes. That, coupled with the extra transitional support for universal credit and the raising of work allowances, it's all about making sure that when we have a strong economy, everybody benefits from that strong economy, and most particularly the lowest paid. And finally, the final point I want to welcome is the freeze in beer duty, because the largest employer in my constituency is a brewery, so I simply cannot overlook the value to my constituency of a freeze in beer duty and supporting consumption of beer. But all in all, I welcome the fact that the budget shows that we have sound finances, a strong economy, support for businesses and communities, investment in infrastructure and public services, support for the lowest paid, and the raising of tax thresholds so people keep more of what they earn. I welcome this budget.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.